A very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to the ICANN initiative, the Hindu and Indian Express analysis. So now that the prelims is over, we are going to resume with the motivational stories and inspirational quotations, and also discussing a question at the end of the video. So this will be doing from the coming Monday onwards. So this week we will continue with just the news analysis. So now we will start with the first topic of the day, which is about self-reliant India. So this article was about Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India, about which we have already seen in the earlier videos a lot. So basically this whole article was suggesting that India should adopt a Rainbow New Deal, its own path to self-sufficiency where people are empowered. So this is a part of your GS2 syllabus. Yesterday, when we were discussing about the United Nations Summit on Convention on Biodiversity, we discussed that the countries got together and they agreed upon the fact that it is because of the environmental exploitation and the loss of biodiversity in the world that has led to the emergence of these animal pathogens which are causing such hazardous pandemics as the COVID. So therefore now once the countries across the world are trying to emerge from the COVID crisis, there are talks in UK and the United States about the Green New Deal. So you must be knowing that New Deal was the program that was launched in the United States to overcome the Great Depression in the 1930s. So similarly, now in the Europe and in the United States, there are talks about Green New Deal because they have realized the fact that environment plays a very important role, and therefore they must go forward with sustainable development as the goal. So that is why they are talking about the concept of Green New Deal, where environment is going to be an integral part of the development policies. So they are going to give more importance to sustainable development. But what this article is suggesting for India is to go for a Rainbow New Deal. So in this, it is not just the centrality of the environment which is important to be considered while we make our policies, but also the fact that this COVID pandemic has taught us so many things, that there are a lot of economic inequality and vulnerability in India. So we need to tackle all of that, because a pandemic is not just a health crisis, it also leads, and as we saw in India with the example of the migrant crisis, how it has also led to an economic crisis. So whatever the new path that we are going to adopt in the future has to tackle not just the environment, not just the development, but the economy as well. So like that, multiple sectors need to be tackled, and that is why India must go through the path of what is called as a Rainbow New Deal. So in which various sectors need to be developed simultaneously. But what this article suggests is the bottom line of everything. If Rainbow New Deal is to become successful, then it is the people who are to be empowered. It lays a lot of stress on the empowerment of people and also a bottom-up approach to development. So till now it has been more or less a top-down approach to development. Though we have the Panchayati Raj and the urban local bodies, many of them are still not empowered, and that local self-governance has still many issues before which it can be realized in true spirit. So this article is saying that we need to empower people and we need to have a bottom-up approach to development. So for this, it goes on to give a number of examples. So it says that when we talk about self-reliance, it should be the Gandhiji's. He stressed on empowering the people, giving power to the people to so that people can develop themselves rather than somebody else developing them. So this was Gandhiji's concept of Swarajya and self-reliance. So based on this, this article mentions a couple of examples. So these examples you can quote in your answers. One is Suresh Changa, who is the Sarpanch of Kunaria village in Kutch in Gujarat. He says that there are several small things which are required in the day-to-day life, be it footwear or soap, furniture, clothes. So these are the small things which are required in our day-to-day life. But if we procure this from outside rather than developing it locally, it will cost much more. So what Suresh Changa says is that if these items are produced locally by the people in the villages, by making a cluster of the villages, if they themselves produce these items which are of need in the day-to-day lives, then monthly one can save about 40 lakh. So every panchayat can save about 40 lakhs of rupees every month if these things are produced locally. So this shows how when people have been given the power to develop themselves, then they can themselves do all this. They can not just save money, but also they can empower themselves. So this example you can give. And the second example is of Elango Rangasamy. So Elango Rangasamy is a former Dalit Sarpanch of Kutambakam village in Tamil Nadu. So he has proposed what is called as a network economy. So in a network economy, there will be several clusters of villages will be there. Each of these village will develop their own specialization. So they will develop something, and second village will develop something else, and then among themselves they will exchange it, and then both of them will be self-reliant. So when this village has already produced something that it can and something that it cannot produce, it is getting from the other village. Like that, there are a cluster of villages, and they all together form what is called as a network economy. So in such network economies, a cluster of villages become self-reliant and self-sufficient, and they don't have to be dependent upon the outside world or bigger companies for purchasing and buying anything. So thereby the people in the local area, in those cluster of villages, they can also get employment opportunities. The villages will be self-reliant and self-sufficient. They don't have to borrow from the outside world. They can also develop themselves. So this is a very good example how local employment opportunities could be created, and also the villages could be made self-sufficient. Next, the article talks about Ela Bhatt, and Ela Bhatt has given the concept of 100-mile radius. So this is similar to this concept that in a 100-mile radius, it is possible to produce everything which is required to be self-sufficient by the local communities themselves. So all of these people and these concepts are trying to put the people at the center of development. This is what we have been calling as the citizen-centric development, where citizen is at the center of the development. So the development will not just empower the citizen, but also the citizens are an integral part of the development. They are the stakeholders who are actually causing the development. So the self-reliance concept of Gandhiji should be based on the principle of the empowerment of the people, and also village-based local economies need to be developed if India really has to be self-sufficient. So these examples you can give to show how the local communities can be empowered, and a cluster of villages can be self-sufficient and self-reliant. So that is it. Now we move on to the next topic. The next topic we'll be discussing is the India-Myanmar relation, so which is a part of your bilateral relations and comes under your GS paper 2. So I have been repeatedly telling that whenever you come across any question on bilateral relations and its analysis, you have to analyze it by putting it under different kinds of categories. So be it defense and strategic, then economic and infrastructure, trade and commerce, then people to people and cultural ties, and some social ties, which includes the health, education, and such things. Then cooperation at the international fora. So like that, you have to divide it into multiple categories and then analyze the relations. So now the context why the India-Myanmar relations is in news is because the foreign secretaries of both the countries have met, and they have discussed upon a couple of issues. So it is because of this that the India-Myanmar relations is in news. So let's see what happened in the foreign secretary meet. So we will just quickly go through the important highlights. First, in the area of health, India has recognized the fact that even Myanmar is fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, and in order to support Myanmar to successfully overcome this pandemic, India is also giving support through supplying the antiviral drug Remdesivir. So this is the cooperation in the field of health. Next, we come to the economy. So Sitwe Port, India has provided for the development of the Sitwe port, and it has long been pending. So now in this particular foreign secretary meet, it has been decided that Sitwe port must be made operationalized in the first quarter of 2021. So this is very important, and Sitwe port is going to provide connectivity between the Indian mainland and Myanmar directly through the Bay of Bengal, through the Bay of Bengal. So that is why Sitwe port is very important for carrying on trade and commerce as well. So therefore, this is going to be operationalized in the first quarter of 2021. Next is India has also invested in the Kaladan multimodal project and also a trilateral highway project. But however, the progress on these projects has been extremely slow. So we have even discussed before, while we were discussing about the challenges that the Indian diplomacy is facing. So we had analyzed a question in detail, that what are the challenges, the diplomatic challenges that India faces, in which one of the challenges we have discussed was the India's poor track record of completing the projects that it undertakes in various countries, be it the Chabahar port in Iran, or be it the power plants that India has started in Nepal, so be it the Kaladan and the trilateral highway. So there are a lot of projects that India has started in various countries, but then the progress of these on these projects has been extremely slow. So this also was discussed in the foreign secretary meet, and then both the sides have decided that the work on the Kaladan multimodal transport and also the trilateral highway needs to be speeded up. So this was the second thing. And third thing was India has also now India is giving $2 million in assistance to Myanmar in order to build a border heart bridge. So this border heart bridge is going to improve the connectivity between Myanmar and Mizoram in India. So this is going to improve the cross-border connectivity. So for that, India has given the assistance of $2 million for a border heart bridge. So all of these come under the cooperation in economy and improving connectivity. Next, we'll have a look at defense and the strategic issues. So first is that both the sides have in this foreign secretary meet agreed that their territories should not be allowed to be used to do any such activities which are inimical to the interests of the other country. So this is the first agreement that they have agreed to. Second is the presence of insurgent groups. So we know that in the northeastern part of India there are several insurgent groups which are operating. Now many of these insurgent groups get cross-border support through supply of men and materials from Myanmar also. So there have been several insurgent groups of the northeast who are taking shelter in Myanmar. So Myanmar recently in the month of May had handed over 22 cadres of these insurgent groups to India. So India appreciated the fact that Myanmar has always been supportive to India in handling these insurgent groups, and it has been handing over these people who are belonging to these insurgent groups to India promptly. So it should continue to cooperate with India in this regard. So this is one fact with respect to the insurgent groups, and this will cooperation between India and Myanmar in this regard is going to help bring down the level of insurgency in the northeast. The third is the Rohingya issue. So we know the fact that these Rohingya Muslims from Myanmar have been they have come to India as refugees fearing persecution in Myanmar. So in India they have been now sheltered in various these refugee shelters, but however India has considered this to be a security issue because these Rohingya shelter camps have proved to be some of the fertile grounds for radicalization of these Muslim youth, and they carrying out some terrorist activities. So India has taken a serious consideration of this, and it wanted to return the Rohingya refugees back to Myanmar. So now India in this meet has also shown support to Myanmar in the return of these Rohingya refugees. It has said again that India will continue to support a safe, sustainable and a speedy return of the Rohingya refugees back to Myanmar. So it is safe, sustainable and speedy return of the Rohingya refugees to Myanmar. So this is what the India stand is, and this has been reiterated in this meet that India will continue to support safe, sustainable and speedy return of the Rohingya refugees to Myanmar. So this was about the Rohingya refugees. And next is the people to people and the cultural ties. So in that first is Tilak's bust is to be made in the Mandalay because we know that after the Swadeshi and the boycott movement, when Bal Gangadhar Tilak was arrested and he was sent to prison in Mandalay. So now 100th death anniversary is approaching, so therefore it has been decided that Tilak's bust is going to be installed in the Mandalay prison. So this is one aspect of the cultural ties, which is kind of integrating our freedom ethos and Bal Gangadhar Tilak's legacy in Myanmar. The second is there is also an agreement about the translation of the Indian epics, that is Ramayana and Mahabharata, into Burmese language. So this is the second development that has happened in the cultural ties. So these are the important ties that we have discussed, which were recently discussed in the Foreign Secretary meet between India and Myanmar. So like that, overall, over a period of time, that is over a period of 1 year, when you track the developments between the two countries, you will know which are the most important developments which has to be mentioned, and then you can make a good analysis of everything. So for international relations, you don't have to refer to any other thing except tracking the developments in the newspaper. So that will itself provide a lot of material to write a very, very good answer. So it's just important that you make a note of all these developments continuously, and then at the end you will have a very comprehensive notes with you on any bilateral relation. Now we move on to the next topic. The next thing we are going to be discussing is about an important judgment. So I am not discussing the judgment here, so that is for you to do, and I am giving this as a small homework for you to do today to know about what this judgment is. So I have been previously always stressing that when you write your GS2 answers, you have to incorporate in your answers some of the important judgments of the Supreme Courts. So, and also sometimes there have been questions which were asked only on a particular judgment. For example, there was a question that was asked on the Coelho judgment. So like that, every year you may find some question that is asked either purely on the judgment, or you may have to take the support of these judgments while writing the answer if you want to write a very good answer. So in this case, I have also suggested for you to make notes separately, and then you make a list of all the important judgments. So here you can write the name of the judgment, and then what issue it is talking about, what issue on which the judgment was pronounced. So like that, you have to make a separate list of judgments which you are going to go through again and again, because unless and until you revise it multiple times, on the day of the exam when you are writing the answer, you won't be able to incorporate the name of the judgment into the answer, though you may be knowing a judgment related to that particular issue, but you will not be able to remember it on that in that 7 to 10 minutes to write it in the answer. So that's why it's important to make a separate list of all the judgments, and then just paste it in front of your study table, and then have a glance at it every now and then. At least in the weekends you have to have a glance at it. So now I'm going to write the name of a judgment, and your small homework for today is to write about that judgment, what it is about, what kind of rights was that judgment upholding, and everything about it you have to write. And the name of the judgment is Selvi versus State of Karnataka. So this judgment, this is the name of the case. So you have to write in the comment section what this case was about, what rights were upheld. So everything you have about this judgment you have to write, and then you also have to write in what kinds of questions you may be able to apply this, so that you can write in your notes. So whenever you are making this particular sheet, you may have a third column where you will write about the application. That is for which all topics whatever topics comes, in which all cases you can apply this particular judgment, because it is never the case that one particular judgment will be used only in one topic. It is not like that. One judgment can be used in multiple topics and multiple answers. So you have to also make a list of the issues in which you are going to be using this judgment. So like that, you have to make a separate list of paper. You have to maintain a separate list. So you have to write this as part of your homework in the comment section. So that is it for today. There wasn't anything much important in the newspaper. So you must have seen that when we started off ICAN in the month of April, so that time most of the newspaper was covering corona news a lot, because that was new. That time the lockdown was new, so therefore almost newspapers were covering just the news about corona. So that is why what I was doing is, because I didn't find much from the newspaper, I was taking up one topic per day, and then I was discussing that more holistically. let's say if it is about the Panchayati Raj or the police reforms or any international relations or anything related to environment conservation. So like that, whenever I found any topic about which a passing mention was made in the newspaper, but there wasn't really any news under it, so I was discussing those topics more holistically. But later on, what happened, Corona became a very common thing, so that is why newspapers also started covering many other news, important news as well. So that is when we started to have more news to be covered, and that is when I had to stop that coverage of the topic, because otherwise it would be more than 1 hour of video, which is not possible to be done. So from now on, what I'll be doing is, because again now I'm seeing that the topics are some of the days I don't find anything in the newspaper. In fact, in the month of July, there were so many topics that even on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, the normal days, the video was extending to more than 45 minutes. So that time there was a lot of topics that we have discussed. So now again I'm finding a phase where the newspapers, I don't really find too many important things in the newspaper. So though whatever we are discussing is important, but the rest of the newspaper there is nothing. So very less amount of content from the newspaper we are getting. So in future, if this happens, I'll be taking up some topic and I'll be discussing that topic with you, so that on days when the newspaper is not giving us good content, let's utilize the time of at least half an hour and then discuss some good topic. So otherwise, if there is good content in the newspaper, I won't be discussing any other topic, because that itself will take more than half an hour. So that is it. These were the other articles which weren't important or which we have previously covered. So that is it for today. Thank you.